Devotion is the moment where you cultivate this practice not for yourself or for your own personal gain, but in service of the ones you love. That this practice is not about you anymore, but you get to the point where this is in service. Now, some people hear that and they can be scared of that idea because they've been in relationships where they may have been that person, but it wasn't reciprocated. They were in a one-way dynamic where they gave that, the other person went, "Thank you very much," but didn't give it back. The devotion we're talking about is when two people come together and give their lives to one another in that way. And when you enter into that dynamic, where there is that degree of love and trust and true devotion, selfless devotion, this is for you. And the person in front of you is doing the same. There's no substitute for that experience. I wish that experience for every human being, to know what that can be like and to share that experience with somebody. If I didn't have this work, it never would have been possible for me. The only reason I can have that experience today is because of this map, is because of these practices, is because of the discipline of showing up to it day in and day out. But as you begin to taste it, it becomes as precious as any other thing in your life.
Welcome to the Heart of Man podcast, a podcast for any man seeking to live in alignment with his deepest core and lead a life of profound meaning and connection. I'm your host, Alex Lehman, and I'm here to empower you through transformative conversations, eye-opening insights, and practical wisdom. Join me now as we venture into the heart of man. Let's dive in. All right, everybody. This has been a conversation I've been eagerly looking forward to sharing with you for weeks. This is arguably the most important discussion I've published to date on the subject of leading your relationships and sustaining the fire within them. I have the great honor to be inviting Justin Patrick Pierce back on the podcast, this time alongside his wife, Londin Angel Winters. The first podcast I recorded with Justin quickly became the most downloaded episode of the show, and as I see it, served as a powerful declaration of the importance for us as men to bring awareness to how we're showing up in our intimate relationships and how we can sustain desire over the long run. Today's episode continues that conversation and goes even deeper into one essential question. What does it take to sustain depth, intimacy, and fire in a long-term, committed, monogamous relationship? Before coming together for this conversation, I took time to reflect on the subject of desire, which can still feel somewhat elusive and complex. Up until a few years ago, I myself couldn't articulate what truly awakened my desire for someone or what repelled it. I was also unaware of what creates the quote-unquote neutrality so many couples find themselves in over time. For the sake of providing answers on the subject of what creates neutrality and how we can be liberated in our desires, I've structured our conversation together around the framework used by Justin and Londin in their most recent book, Playing with Fire. The episode today will be a continuation of my first conversation with Justin. So if you're unfamiliar with teachings of polarity, their book Playing with Fire, or their use of terms like alpha, omega, seer, and feeler, my encouragement is to listen to my first conversation with Justin as it lays a strong foundation for these teachings and the ideas we explore today. In the realm of polarity, sacred intimacy, and welcoming relationships as a ground for spiritual growth, I hold few individuals in higher regard than Justin and Londin. Together, they lead a business, write, teach, and live as householders while also raising their daughter Ava and remaining committed to sustaining the fire of their relationship, 16 years strong. My deepest hope is that this conversation leaves you with a clear understanding of the foundational pillars that make relationships thrive, along with tools to support your own journey of love and intimacy. Now, without further ado, let's dive into this powerful conversation with Londin and Justin. Welcome back on The Heart of Man. I'm your host, Alex Lehman, and I'm incredibly excited for this upcoming very special interview with the returning guest, Justin Patrick Pierce, alongside his wife, Londin Angel Winters. It's an absolute honor to have the two of you on the show.
Yeah, it's great to be back, man. And I'm glad we could get Londin looped in this round.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
I absolutely agree. And a few things I might just want to share before we start rolling with some questions and some dialogue. First of all, the conversation I had with you, Justin, very quickly became the highest regarded conversation on my show. And a lot of people came back with questions and remarks on how impactful the conversation was. And it really stuck out for me in terms of the inquiry, okay, like why is this so valuable? And what is it about this conversation that is so important for our listeners? And I'm very excited for us to dive deeper into the conversation. I feel like we laid the foundations in many ways. And the inquiry that came up for me for our conversation today is this dialogue around how can we sustain the fire, the spark, particularly in long committed monogamous relationships? And this is something where, whether it's with myself or whether it's with other people that I speak to, we very much highly regard the work that you do, but also you both provide us hope in the sense that, okay, we can be in a long committed partnership, but we can sustain the fire because it almost feels like arrows and desire and fire. It seems to me, and challenge me if I'm wrong, it almost seems like it goes against us when we want to have long committed partnerships. So I feel like I said a lot here, but I want to begin the conversation around with the individuals that you both work with. What do you see is prevalent in regards to the spark falling away or couples not being able to sustain the spark over long periods of time?
A lot of the time when people come to work with us, it's been 5, 10, 15, 20 years that this spark has been dying a slow death. So oftentimes people will turn to us after they've done the therapy, after they've tried other techniques, modalities, anything they can get their hands on, and they say, man, we need to find something that really works here. And at that point, they'll begin looking for alternative modalities. And for a long time, this work was very hidden from public view. That's changing with social media quite dramatically now. Everyone's heard about polarity work. But what London and I teach goes far deeper than polarity work. Polarity is just a mere fraction of what's available in this body of work. So as we begin to explore that, it does get revealed quite quickly, where did polarity go? And generally that happens in what we call the lower triangle: awareness, sensitivity, and equanimity. And when we're missing that dynamic in our relationship, feeling seen by our partner, understood, gotten, if that's not happening, that will start to erode at intimacy. It'll begin to destroy the love and trust connection. If we feel like we can't share our feelings honestly, or when we do share our feelings, they come out hostile, like an attack, because we're so reactive and pent up, that causes tons of damage. So what we need to learn at the foundation of our intimate relationship is, how do we see one another? How do we express what we feel, and how do we do it with equanimity? Because equanimity is the heart and soul of real spiritual practice. Equanimity is the doorway to real liberation. So the people who come to us, that spark has been gone. And where do we start with them? We have to begin at that foundation. And what we find is that foundation is often very much in ruin. So we need to build trust and love back. Then we begin to reintroduce polarity.
Anything you would like to add, London?
Having been in the work for such a long time, you see where people start grasping, because when it gets into the gutter of neutrality, everybody's miserable. He's miserable, wondering if his life is over. She's miserable, wondering she'll never be able to have the love that she wanted to have. The kids are miserable because the parents are miserable. I mean, it's just like a terrible situation. And then that puts you in a desperate place, and you see what you want to grab for. And polarity is such a sexy idea that people want to grab polarity. So for example, she finds out that moving is a polarizing thing. He's stillness, she's movement. So she starts moving. But if you really look at her, she's moving with a rock in her heart. She's moving not trusting him. There was a rift, there was a rupture. She lost trust. She didn't go there first. She started moving on top of it. And he's going, in a short-term 3-month thing, right? He's buying all of it. But in 10, 20 years, he's like, that's a trap. You know what I mean? he can see that rock in her heart. He can see the tension in her body, and he can see her kind of moving, and then he's wondering, what's the hook? And this is why I think the work is so powerful, because when you start working on trust and love before you bring all the candy of polarity, now her body has completely, let's say they repair the rupture and she's like, "Oh, I worship you." Now she moves like she worships him, and he knows it. And the thing that's so beautiful is when you see a couple that hasn't had the spark in 20 years and they get the love and trust, the polarity rises naturally. And they often say, wow, I see the person that I stood at the altar with, or it's like they can see and feel each other again. And then when you do all that fun candy, it's explosive.
Lots coming up for me here. I guess the thing that, stands out for me is that when the spark fades away and we are in this position where we are in this space of neutrality, it can be very easy for us to grasp onto, ideas of polarity. And then we learn about these things. We go into a workshop and something is working. It's almost like the fire is starting to come back. And then there's an excitement again. It's like, this is our solution. This is the salvation that we were looking for. But it's almost like there isn't the recognition that there's a bedrock underneath it, a foundation that is not fully settled in. And the thing I just want to mention here, I had the opportunity as well to re-listen to your book, Playing with Fire, before this interview. And I must say, the second time listening to it, it really assimilated the teachings for me on a deeper level, in the recognition that these 7 principles that you speak to are really the foundation. It's a map, as I see it, a map towards walking this spiritual path of relationship. So I want to go a little bit deeper into this idea of the lower triangle around awareness, sensitivity, and equanimity. And what I'm hearing you say is that, okay, we got these wounds, we got ruptures. And as a result of these wounds and ruptures, we become resentful, we become bitter, we become guarded. So how can we use the teachings that you both provide in terms of working through these ruptures or wounds?
The Eastern tradition of Vipassana, which was brought by Gautama Buddha, that practice, that teaching, was the answer to that question. And that technology has been around for 2,500 years. And what is the technology that he brought through in that transmission? It was learning how to still ourselves, to be aware, to be sensitive to our experience, and to not react to whatever we're seeing or feeling flowing through our experience. And just that act of not reacting, but seeing with profound awareness, feeling with deep sensitivity, our direct experience without reacting, that creates healing for all of us. Now that's an entirely different approach than what we're used to in the West, which in the West is a popularized psychological approach, which has its benefits, but it also has its drawbacks, just as the Eastern approach has benefits and drawbacks. Now, what we're learning how to do is, with the infinite wisdom we have available to us today, to look at the whole picture and say, what is the right tool for this moment, for this job? What creates the real healing? And generally, most couples are spending too much time in the therapy model and not enough exposure and experience into other modalities that can have also an incredible benefit. Getting into your body, learning how to meditate, learning how to feel your experience without reactivity, gives you the embodied experience that I can communicate my experience without shaming you, without blaming you, without criticizing you. And where does that come from? That doesn't come from just mental gymnastics of trying to learn a language. It comes from the direct felt experience that I've metabolized this. I can feel what I'm feeling and see what I'm seeing and still speak lovingly to you. I can be in the authenticity of my experience and speak lovingly to you. Now, the thing is, the Buddha gave us that model for solo practice, because when we do Vipassana, we do that alone. What happens when there's a partner in front of us? How do we bridge that gap such that this experience of our relationship becomes a two-bodied meditation? And the practices that we created in playing with fire are that. They are the essence of Vipassana transformed into a two-body practice that allows you to meditate one another and heal those wounds that exist between you, the ones on the surface that you're aware of, and even the deep subconscious ones you're not aware of. It all gets healed because you're using the power of that technology. Now, once you begin to develop that connection and that love and trust is restored, that's when we learn how to play with fire and bring polarity and desire. And that element, which is total counter to the Vipassana tradition, playing with desire, playing with fire. So we need to be incredibly mindful and artful in the way that we now introduce polarity such that the fire creates a warming heat that serves our relationship as opposed to burning it down. And what happens all too often in people that become involved in polarity work is they get a taste of polarity, they latch onto it, and they just notice in their own life and the people around them, it's burning. They're getting burned. Partners are getting burned. Couples are breaking up. Couples aren't lasting. What's happening? It's fire out of control. And so in the West, we've lost this fundamental foundation of awareness, sensitivity, and equanimity that we brought back and teach in playing with fire.
So what I'm really hearing is that this is actually a lot more around an integration of both of those and really looking at how can you bring practices through on an embodied level to really come together as couples. And, with my background more in the realms of nervous system regulation work and really exploring it more from the foundational elements of the nervous system, what I came to really inquire into over the last few years, I consider these moments of conflict. And I notice how in those elements, there is this maybe tendency or even desire to talk things out. But it's in those moments where, after doing the work long enough, I almost came to recognize the ridiculousness of it, and the recognition that, our nervous systems are fired up in those moments. We're in fight or flight. We see our partners as adversaries. There isn't this sense of regulation from which we can come with a level of empathy, compassion, nor understanding. And I've come to recognize in those moments, or at least what I aspire to work on in those moments when conflict does arise, is actually to come into a state of regulation, whether we can do it in partnership with each other, or we have to have a pause and we regulate ourselves individually.
I love what you're bringing because I think a lot of people are recognizing that if you're in fight or flight or freeze, there's no movement of the energy, right? So, yet if you also go off on your own and totally neutralize, you're like neutered in the name of mindfulness. So this is like, wait a minute, okay, this isn't it. And that doesn't always create it because when I come back, I'm so whole. I don't feel that like, you know? So really what our work represents is you're in that thing. You're in that like, it's pregnant with energy. What's a constructive way for the two of you to meet that monster that has you end in lovemaking? And that's what the I see, I feel practice is. The lower triangle, as we've been discussing it, sounds not very hot, but it's actually incredibly hot because you're both coming, you're both fully charged. There's a lot there. Any couple that's getting real raw and honest, there's going to be that fiery tussle if you're being really honest, How do you learn how to make love with that? You have a structure to run those energies such that instead of burning you alive, they fire you up. And that's what I see, I feel represents. So think about it. If he's the seer and I'm the feeler, maybe I'm the one with the hurt. I discipline myself to only say I feel statements. I feel, and I'm as honest as I can, as embodied as I can. So I take a breath. I feel a loss of trust. He says, he puts his attention on me. I see that I lost your trust. boom, I take that in. Now this is the meditation part. Now I let him in. I'm permeable to that statement rather than arguing my point back, rather than pulling up another pile of crap and throwing it at him. I let that meditate me and shift me a little bit. And then I bring my next I feel. I feel like I can be here again. And then he says, I see.
I see my woman coming back to me. I see you softening.
Right? No, I'm letting him in. This is the spiritual work. Because after I've been hurt, I don't want to let him back in. I want to stick my heels in the ground and defend my lost trust. I want to go off on my own and neutralize. I want to do anything but get my ass burned in the intensity of what we're doing in a structure where I can't just vent venom on him. And that's what I see, I feel is. And we've seen I see, I feel heal things that would cause divorce. And instead, not only are they sharing a reality, they now have a shared reality. She feels seen. He feels like she's giving him her permeable heart. But they can make love as the very next step because they're so united. Love and trust is back. And it's literally just from seeing, feeling, in equanimity, meaning nobody's going to go full reactivity and fight, flight, or freeze. I mean, you could easily say that fight, fight, or freeze is a reactive response. And what equanimity looks like is meeting the moment. Together, turning it back into deep F. Really, truly, like taking all of that until it's
It's interesting, and I'm currently reflecting on the potency of the practice. And when I heard you speak, London, I observed that you spoke to what is true in the moment. So you spoke to the very thing that's in the moment and gave that space for expression. And I just reflect on my past experiences and sometimes the experiences I hear from clients or people I am exposed to. And often there can be this culture of withholding, of not sharing our experience, like almost perceiving it to be inconvenient if we share something. And I also heard you as well, in a past interview, speak of the fact when we swallow our no, we lose our yes. Could you share a little bit more about that and the importance of really being honest? And also, how can we deliver it in a way that the person can receive it? Because sometimes if we don't do it elegantly, it will be met with defensiveness, right?
For sure. Well, you shame, blame, and criticize anybody, they're going to defend themselves. I don't care what a great practitioner they are. They're signing up for abuse if they just man up on that one. You know what I mean? I think the key that makes it work is the only place that intimacy is found is in the right now moment. My feels have to be the felt experience of only right now. And if I'm lopping on my history with my dad, my history with my brother, my history with my ex, he can't wake up around that. There's nothing for him there's no consciousness for him to wake up. And so it's not the practice. My emotions, I have developed a practice where I'm very committed that my sensitivity serves his awakening. It doesn't serve me. It's not like, I get to be this fully loaded woman, run my trip all over him. I don't do that at all. I mean, that's just ego run wild. I develop my sensitivity to be his sacred oracle. So when he's off, I can be like, like my heart says, doesn't feel right now. And it's very rare that I even get that mad because he's listening to me so attuned that all I really need to do is just be like, and he'll be like, got it. But that's because neither of us are like asserting our right to run roughshod over the other person. So I really think if you want to do this practice in a way that awakens him, You do all your solo work to get rid of the charge that comes from things that have nothing to do with him. And then you bring him the truth of the moment through your body, through your feeling. And when he feels that, he knows that there's gems in there for him. He melts right before your eyes back into the king that he is. The truth, the piercing truth of the heart, awakens consciousness every time if he wants to grow.
It's an interesting subject matter, and what it brings up for me is this idea of if I reflect on past partnerships, when something would be shared or expressed or revealed with openness, where I felt a sense of connection to the heart, a sense of tenderness, where it was ultimately just about revealing the experience that was present, I almost always noticed that it brought us closer, and there was a deep desire just to receive whatever was there, whether it was anger, whether it was sadness, whether it was hurt. But it was almost when that came from a more close-heartedness, and it was more, finger pointing or blaming, shaming, or criticizing, it was almost in those moments where I would close up myself and as well need to guard myself. I even reflect on moments where I'd be in deep practice, in tantric workshops, let's say, where we would do transfiguration practice, where we'd have feminine practitioners literally come up to us and really, shouting at us and screaming at us. And when it's done with an open-heartedness, it's almost like I can take it all, right? But it's almost, yeah, when it comes sideways and mm, unexpectedly from certain moments where I feel there's a close offness, it creates a lot of difficulties to really establish connection there.
Absolutely does. Because it's an entirely different experience for a woman to show her rage to you or her fullness when it has nothing to do with you. But it's an entirely different experience when her rage and upset is because of you. Those are two radically different experiences. And that's kind of the disconnect we experience from a workshop to a real life relationship event. You go to a workshop and you go, man, all this feminine rage is brilliant. It's enlivening. Look at the connection, the heart openness. But then you go home with your real partner and she starts to show that. You shut down, you become defensive, you go cold, right? So the quality of those experiences couldn't be more opposed in so many ways. But at the same time, they are similar. So going to a workshop and getting that experience is a training ground. It's like hitting the gym for the real thing. But being a practitioner is you're able to do it in the real thing, which is your real relationship with your partner for 10, 15, 20 years, and you guys have been through it. And now you're in that moment and what's happening in your nervous system. You're able to maintain eye contact. You're able to breathe fully down into the base of the body and back up again. You're able to keep an open, unguarded body as that's happening. You're able to reflect to your partner, I see you're hurt right now. I see what I said earlier crushed you. I see that I've lost your trust. All we're doing is we're bringing a fully open, embodied consciousness with awareness of, I understand what's going on here. I have self-awareness. I did this and it hurt you. I have awareness. You're feeling this right now. Just that awareness is better than any I'm sorry in the world. Because an I'm sorry might be nice, but it's not a demonstration that you've become more conscious. It's not a demonstration that I see you. I see what's happening. And when we learn to develop that level of awareness with an open, unguarded body and a full feeling breath, say, I see I hurt you. I see how challenging this moment is for you. These are the moments of our lives that change the nature of this relationship and keep that fire alive. We had this moment just earlier today. Coming through the holidays was an incredibly tumultuous experience for us. We had our ups and downs. We have our family things going on, getting sick. I mean, we go through it with it like everyone else. The only thing we're doing differently is what I just described. Is that moment happens and my eye contact is there. I'm breathing. I'm giving her the dignity of her own feeling experience without trying to fix it or make it wrong. Without trying to say, oh, maybe you just need to do this. What you need to do is, hey, have you looked at this? You know what you need? None of that. It's, I see. I see you're having this experience and I'm right here with you.
Mm.
And when we develop that confidence and that concentration of bringing our partner into the present moment, that is real intimacy. That is real consciousness and light merging in this present moment as it already is. And we're just reminding each other of that. Because what is the essence of that intimacy that you were just describing? It's the experience of a shared reality. And if we don't have that experience of a shared reality, the intimacy won't be that deep. It could be sexy, it could be pleasurable, it could be orgasmic, it could be fantastic. But the essence of a shared reality is the magic that makes sex sacred.
Yes.
The word that really stood out for me is shared reality. And I consider these moments when I feel seen, when I feel felt, when I feel recognized. It's in those moments where I feel a deeper safety within my body. And, I would assure as well, like a partner would as well experience that, which will actually create the foundation where there's, desire can come from that. And open-heartedness actually arises from that bedrock, from that foundation. So I would love for us to transition the conversation slightly over to the middle circle and speak a little bit more around these elements of desire and polarity. The first place I would like us to begin is I almost consider my life, and then I consider as well the conversation I have with clients, other men, the way life demands more and more of us. It almost seems like it requires us to consistently be in these areas of alpha alpha. I consider couples, I consider partners who might be business owners who share a business with each other, who might even be parents. It can so easily creep in that neutrality kicks in or the polarity fades away. And a lot of individuals might be completely unconscious to these different, ways of relating that you as well speak to for many years now in terms of alpha alpha, omega omega, and alpha omega. So I'm curious to hear, how can our listeners, if they have busy lives, if they have a lot of demand, how can they start bringing in more of that intrigue, more of that erotic tension? You kind of mentioned to it, London, like bringing this element of deep fuck back into their lives, right? And I've heard you both speak to this, which I found to be really interesting, which is we can have sex without deep fuck, but we can as well have deep fuck without sex. And so there's this inquiry, how can we, even if we have busy lives, how can we start bringing in deep fuck again?
Hmm. If we have busy lives, we must bring it in, or we lose the script, right? Everything just feels terrible. It can become the sprinkles through the whole day.
One thing that comes to mind and comes up in conversation often is the conflict between purpose and love, or purpose and relationship. And most of those two things very much feel at odds for people. They feel at odds for the individual who's wrestling between work and relationship, and they feel at odds for the couple. But with women working just as much as men these days, both of them are now wrestling with those alpha and omega dynamics. We don't live in a world where most of the time we're going to be in that traditional model. Most of the time, couples are in this dynamic where both partners are innervating alpha and omega quite a bit, more than most of us realize, which is why we even developed our work. It's so subtle how we shift in and out of alpha and omega. The moment you're making an observation and you say any degree of I see, this is what I see, this is what I see in you, you're an alpha. Any moment you go, this is what I feel, this is what I'm feeling, you're an omega. It's that subtle. And those subtle distinctions have a massive impact on our relationship dynamics moment to moment to moment to moment. So this work is about becoming radically conscious and sensed to that fact. That's the essence of the work. Now, how do we bring deep fuck back in? We need to become aware of these ways of relating. So if you're in alpha mode all the time and that doesn't turn off, That could be good, but if you want polarity with a partner, one of you is going to have to go into omega at a certain point, right? One of you is going to need to innervate that opposite pole to create then that sexual tension. How do we create the time and space for such a thing? How do we actually get polarity back in our lives? London and I have busy lives. We coach together, we write together, we teach together. Even though relatively, when you compare us right now, I'm more alpha, she's more omega, we're both innervating alpha as well because she's bringing the clarity of her consciousness to this conversation. So there's a degree of us being alpha together. This is not the full force of our polarity dynamic. When we're parenting together, this could look similar, but we're both in alpha and our daughter becomes omega in that moment because we have to manage. Where is she? Is she going to be on time? Does she have lunch? We got to go out the door. What are we going to do? All of that is alpha, and we all get tracked into it so easily that our biggest problem is we don't know how to turn it off. We don't know how to get out of that mode. So some foundational rules that we live by and we offer our clients is like no TV in the bedroom, no phones, no emails in the bedroom. Your bedroom must become sacred space. And when you enter in there, there's no other psychic energy except you and your partner. You're not even talking about other people because that will corrode your polarity dynamic. You're laying in bed with your partner at night, you start talking about this person, that person psychically is now in bed with you, and it's going to totally deteriorate any possibility of a deeper intimacy that could have happened instead. So making certain areas in your room is a great foundational practice, putting boundaries on it. Being aware of when we're in work mode and when we're in polarity mode is another key one. So many men and women get caught up in their to-do. They don't realize every time they turn to their partner, they're giving them another task. Hey, did you do this? Hey, I need you to go do this. Are you on top of this? Are you doing this? That constant alpha-alpha conversation is incredibly destructive to polarity. We need to learn to turn it off. The thing is, it's very addictive because it's so productive. It works, it gets things done, and we want to be productive people. But if we don't turn that off to prioritize polarity in our lives, polarity gets last place. Polarity is the first thing to go. Money's prioritized, work, children are prioritized, errands are prioritized. But we need to reemphasize the importance of intimacy and our sexual connection and make that just as important as every other feature of our lives. Our intimate connection is just as important as our child, just as important as our home, as our bills, as the money we make. This is right up there, not second, not third, right on top. And I think that's the attitude we really instill and inspire in a lot of our students and clients. And once they get a taste of it, they go, oh, that's it. I've been missing something. And their lives shift from there.
And it doesn't have to look like giving up. It doesn't have to look like you're practicing all day. Simple example. I got in the car this morning to take my daughter to school, right? Justin buckles her in. And then he comes around to my window. I'm in full alpha mode because I've just made her a lunch. Come on, get out the door, get out the door. I'm in creating the structure. Justin walks up to my window, and rather than rolling it down and just being like, bye, babe, I soften my body and I take in his gaze. He comes over and he just pins me to the back of my car seat for really long 3 minutes. And I just suck it in. Energetic agility. I put away alpha, I put on omega. I become permeable. I feel his deep F. I roll up the window, I get back in go mode, and I get her to school on time. But little moments like that build up to the wild, crazy sex we have later. We're just constantly stoking the fire. And if you become committed to this, our students become very committed to this. You're never that far away from wanting to take a little bedroom time. It's like you're keeping the fire there. You're not rubbing rocks trying to get a spark.
Most of our listeners on the podcast here are men, and I noticed the desire to empower our men here to actually initiate these experiences, you know, with the beautiful example that you just communicated, because it can be very true. Both of you can be an alpha alpha, but I see that there can be such potency in, you know, the male practitioner, let's say, in a moment, just recognizing, you know what, something else is needed here. Let me just initiate something. Let me bring something in. Let me give her the gift of being an omega for just these few little moments.
I want to make sure that I could really be helpful in this. And you describe this word initiate. And it's so interesting because while I recognize taking action, initiating is one of those alpha features, over the years, what I've observed and noticed is it's not the true essence of alpha whatsoever. And I know that could be disorienting or shocking to hear, but the deeper you practice, the more you realize the less you actually have to do. And what I mean by that is the same way that when you're meditating, you're doing nothing, but you're actually doing a lot. You're remarkably disciplined. You're not letting your mind wander. Your mind is sharp and concentrated. You are radically present. You are conscious of your breath and the sensation flowing from head to toe. You are fully aware of the environment that you're in. You could monitor all of these subtle sensations and experiences, but you're doing nothing impeccably. And when you can just give that quality of yourself of doing nothing impeccably, suddenly she feels you present with her. And what did I do in that moment that London just described? I did nothing, but I did it impeccably. Because how did I do nothing? And there is some things we need to do, or a better way to say it is there's things we need to stop doing. Talk less. Make eye contact. Take a breath. Take your attention off of you and your experience and place it entirely on her and her world. And just see her without trying to fix anything or manipulate her or get something out of her. Because that's the other sneaky part about polarity work when we get involved in sexual desire, is suddenly there's this silent agenda of trying to manipulate our partner to get our needs met. And that is not the essence of real spiritual practice. The essence of spiritual practice is unconditional love. It's, I don't need you to change. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. I got you. And I want you to feel that and know that first. And I can communicate that without saying a word. And so what can your listeners do? Your listeners can develop that quality and that certainty within themselves in solo practice. But then your gift as consciousness is bringing that to another human being and to let them feel the strength and clarity of your own resolve in that way. To feel the certainty of there's no problem here. I got you. I'm with you in this. I know this moment sucks, but I'm here. And to just allow your nervous system to transmit that reality creates such an authentic softening in your partner. Because what does Omega want to hear more than anything? What is your partner who's looking to you to be your radiant light? What are they wanting to know and hear? It's that. I want you to know there's nothing you have to do right now to earn my love. I want you to know I've got you and I'm not going anywhere. And just that essence of relieving the burden that she has to do something to earn creates a softening and a trust that is ecstatic. Now, at the beginning of the relationship, I want to phrase this because this is important. At the very start of a relationship, a new relationship, that might not work so effectively because challenge and tussle, the game, is a big part of attraction. And to give her that win at the start in that way might not feel as exciting as a partner who's going to challenge and say, oh, what I would need is this, or I want this, and da-da-da, you can't meet this, and there's a play. So the dynamics are very different at the very start of a relationship. and what they mature into the longer you're in it. And the longer you're in a relationship, the quality I'm describing is what is needed to build that authentic sense of safety and trust, where your sexuality, her sexuality, continues to blossom and open the longer you're together. That becomes your reality as a result of implementing and not just doing this as a technique, but living it, making it your reality.
Women are powerful alphas. And they are doers, man. Like, you could give any woman a 30-item to-do list. She's going to rock that thing. And when he comes at me with do energy, like, I'm going to do you, I'm going to fix you, there's a level of him at the same level that my alpha is. But when I'm in doer, I'm in like some sort of low-grade alpha vibes, and he comes at me with gravity, he comes at me with the emptiness of ultimate consciousness. He's trumping my alpha so hard. I'm not even trying to surrender. I'm just like, uncle. You know what I mean? It's so good because he's reminding me of things that my like highest self is craving.
One of the things you mentioned, Justin, is that we have to prioritize the love and the intimacy just as much as all the other responsibilities that are present. In your book, Playing with Fire, you regularly come and share about these love dates, these intentional practices, intentional times you come together. For any listener, for any couple that is listening in who don't have an intentional practice, who don't come together for love dates, what would you say in regards to why this is important, and as well how it ripples out into everything else that they do in their lives?
If you want to become flexible, you have to go to a yoga class. We'll never become more flexible reading books about yoga. We can become smarter about or more knowledgeable about the topic, but you won't become flexible. If you want to become strong or fit or lose weight, you have to go to the gym. You have to work out to develop this. It's an interesting thing because when it comes to intimacy, we don't have this same relationship to it. It's almost like a lot of people get involved in intimacy work, and this was me at the start. I don't need that. I don't need to learn anything about intimacy. I'm fine, right? I can have sex. I can go on dates. What would I need this for? So naive in my own experience. Because as we begin to cultivate a practice where me and London sit down, you and your partner, you sit down and you practice eye contact, breath. I see, I feel, I feel. I get to say I feel. She gets to say I see. You begin to strengthen those muscles that are often so atrophied in all of us. Our ability to speak what we see and what we feel without reactivity, without shame and blame, that is one of the greatest muscles that we can develop as a human being, particularly as it pertains to relationship, intimate relationship. We must be able to learn how to express ourselves authentically without making it sound like an attack or a judgment. Where do we strengthen that skill? We can read books about it, but until you sit down and you get into this space with your partner, which feels so scary, by the way. We're now 16 years into this process together, and I am still nervous and uncomfortable at the idea of sitting down and vulnerably seeing and feeling those parts within ourselves. It's scary still to today. But that scariness means you're touching the depth of your vulnerability, and if you're actually in that vulnerable place and you stay conscious and heart open, that is the gateway to sacred connection. That is the doorway into sacred sexual experiences. That vulnerability must be present. That experience of feeling this is scary for me, I just want everyone to know when you go and do this work and you feel nervous, that is my experience. It's London's experience. It's every experience of the student and clients that we meet. It's gonna feel scary, but that means it's the place where you need to spend that time because there's a tremendous gift if you can show up consciously and lovingly to that space. It is always a gift. It is always transformative. We have to make time in our day to prioritize that, because if too long time passes before we have that sit down and connect in that way, you will start to feel the debris and the grind of life weigh on you, and you'll naturally feel that distance from your partner.
I could add one thing to the men that you mentioned wanting this. Sometimes that omega demand for connection, love, deep I mean, she wants it all, right? I've never worked with a guy who didn't feel like his partner was insatiable. And like he gives a whole weekend and then he's like, okay, I'm heading to work. And she's like, what? And he's just like, oh my God, it never ends. And one thing that is so true about setting up a practice is you give her a time she can count on getting all of your presence. And it really, when you become reliable with it, like you don't bail, you're always there. When you said maybe it's like Wednesday at this time, you'll meet me on the circle rug. We're doing sacred practice. Then on Tuesday when she's hurting, rather than text bombing you, she can be like, tomorrow's coming. And Justin does this for me so good. And it really helps me let him be in purpose when he's in purpose. Because I know. And then I take all my yearning and I pick out my outfit for tomorrow. I take all my yearning, I go get my nails done. Like it gives me time to kind of prep the nest, let him do him. And then we come together and I know when I'm going to get all of them.
Right. It seems like the clarity of the structure gives you something to lean on, and a certain safety arises from that.
For sure. And equanimity. I'm not ruining his purpose with all my demands,
Yeah. Absolutely. And it's one of the greatest gifts that London gives me in relationship. And it's so largely in devotion to the practice that's been revealed just through the years of us being together. And the map came from that. The map came not from me and not from her, but from us sitting down day after day, year after year, doing this and letting the yoga teach us what this is. And when we began to find these pieces of awareness, sensitivity, and equanimity, and recognizing that my omega needs to be seen too. What man doesn't need to be acknowledged and appreciated for what he does by his partner? That's him being seen. If she doesn't see his effort, his contributions, how hard he works, if that's not being reflected, I see you. He's going to start to become bitter, cold, and numb. He's going to lose himself. A man being seen is just as important as a woman being seen. And that's the nature of why we use this language, alpha and omega, because we have to recognize it's not limited by gender, not whatsoever. That's why men and women are able to embody it. If men and women couldn't embody an alpha and omega, women would always be an omega, men would always be alpha. That's not the case. That's why we also have so many fights in a relationship. We're fighting for alpha, right? We're fighting to be heard. This, once we clarify that fact, makes room for one another and reveals through this path that just remembering that place and getting back to the experience that there is room for you, that you can trust, that you could feel seen in your relationship, that you can express yourself wholly. The moment we feel that connection with the person we love, the desire to touch rises naturally. The feeling of, I want to touch you, or I want you to hold me, naturally comes online. That desire naturally springs forth from that space of loving consciousness. And so when we approach the work from that place and have that strong foundation, polarity is rightfully implemented. The fire is held in a sacred way where it no longer burns, but it actually gives life to our sexuality and our connection.
I really appreciate this add-on. And for anyone who's listening in, I highly encourage you as well to listen to the conversation that Justin and I had in our first dialogue together, where we explored extensively this idea of alpha and omega, but as well in the internal experience, the inner marriage, but then also this dialogue, these polarities between, our perhaps omega hearts as well need to be seen. And we actually as well came into a very fascinating dialogue around these things. I want to transition over to the conversation around desire. And, this is really where the fire, the heat is, but as well, if it's done unconsciously, let's say, it can burn the house down, right? So I want to allow enough time for us to explore this conversation extensively. And before I offer a question, I want to actually recite a paragraph from your book, which really stood out for me. I was riding my bike in Bali here, and there was a moment I just had to pause. I was like, it really left an impact on me. So this was you, Justin, speaking it out loud. Usually, what you desire will illuminate the exact thing your partner has been hiding, withholding, or repressing, just as what your partner desires will illuminate the exact thing you've been hiding, withholding, or repressing. I read this and I had to pause, and it's almost as if I recognized that the act of owning and communicating our desires with courage can be, first of all, incredible shadow work practice, can be incredibly liberating, but then the suppression of our desires as well can be incredibly detrimental.
Desire always wants change. Desire always wants change. It is the nature of desire itself. Whatever you're bringing to your partner currently and they're receiving on a regular basis, why would they need to ask for that? It's already happening. You're already bringing it. And by the nature and law of polarity, there's some radical opposite to what you're doing and bringing that would really bring excitement, right? We want to feel that polarity to whatever our partner's bringing, and it brings a new aliveness to the dynamic. So in that sense, our desire is always wanting what's not here. That's its nature. When both of us can develop equanimity around that fact, to be in equanimity with the fact that, yes, I desire and desire is there, and I will allow it to be there because there's no end to my desire. There's no end to that path, that chase. Think about it. Any major goal that you've had in your life, once you get there, you're like, yeah, okay, fine, on to the next. Now I need to da-da-da. Now I need to da-da-da. Now I need to da-da-da. And the same thing happens in our intimate relationship. Oh, this partner's amazing. They're just who I want. But then we get same quality. And I was like, I could use a change. There's something else I need. Now, what happens generally, if that gets expressed unskillfully, and I say, hey, this is what I would need, what's the presupposition behind my words? I want this. The presupposition there that my partner will naturally interpret is, you're not enough. What you're bringing is not enough. I need more, right? So those ideas or beliefs about either I'm not enough or I'm too much are the polarities that block us from liberation around desire. The fear of being not enough or too much. When we sit down with our partner and we feel desire and we know it's there and what its nature is, I can allow myself to express it. And when I say I want, I'm saying it with equanimity, with absolute unconditional love for my partner. I let go of my desire the moment I speak it. It doesn't need to happen because I love you regardless. I want you closer. She may come closer, she may not. I'm in equanimity with the experience and loving her unconditionally regardless of what happens. So I'm allowing the force of my desire and simultaneously in equanimity. That's the paradox of our body of work that rarely gets explored, but I believe it is the very essence of sacred sex. Now she's doing the same thing. I say I want, rather than interpreting that as she's not enough. Oh no, she finds that part in herself and unlocks it. And once she discovers it and brings it to me, not only does something come alive in me, but it also comes alive in her. And she grows and realizes her infinite potential as my partner. That as conscious light, she already is infinite. And through this practice of I want, I'm not shaming her, saying you're not enough. I'm saying you are that. Show me that part of you now. You are that. Show me that part of you now. You are that. And when she absolutely trusts and believes that process, she begins to become liberated as Omega, as infinity. Alpha is eternity, Omega is the infinite. And when those two realities meet at depth through these practices, that's the starting point of sacred sexual union.
It feels empowering just to hear that when you're coming from this foundational understanding, you are this, I see this in you, and this is what I desire. Could you speak a little bit more around this element of desire and equanimity at the same time? And where would as well want to bring it in is this idea around shame for our desires. I still consider that with a lot of men that I speak to, there can be this taboo-like nature around our desires and taboo-like nature around sexuality. And as a result, like many men I speak to, they don't even know what they want. Of course, their body unconsciously is present to what it is that they desire, but it's almost like they are not consciously aware of it because they've never given themselves the space to really address it. Or maybe they have and they've been shamed for it or felt like their partner was closing as a result, which led them to not be open to that. So, to bring it back to a question for someone who has felt shame in the past for their desires, how can they bring equanimity to their desires? But also, how can a partner stay equanimous to their partner's desires?
There's so many things I would want to say, but if I could only say one thing to the men, is that your desire is a profound gift to her. There's nothing better than feeling a trustworthy man that you want undress you with his eyes. And what makes a man's desire so interesting, Justin's desire is so endlessly interesting to me. And what makes his desire so interesting is he's rested back in it. He's fired, like he's on fire inside. But he is rested so far back. And he does this thing in our practice where he never approaches me, but he draws me in. You know what I mean? It's like he's penetrating me, but he's not approaching. He's resting back and burning. And God, I mean, it's desire. That's desire and equanimity in a body. Is like knows what he wants, fully owns what he wants, is every breath is like innervating what he wants, and he is completely unattached to getting it, in no rush for it, and not afraid to show it. Like, because equanimity, part of equanimity is allowing. He's allowing it for himself. And he's allowing me to take my time around it. So it gives me all this time to like circle around it, say, like he'll say something like, I want you to da, 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 da. And I'll think my equanimity is not because I'm not there, not being like, no, too fast. Like that would be shaming to him. We would never have this relationship if I was doing that, like he would have shut his desire down years ago. Cause like, what's the point? But instead, I've always had this relationship to his desire, like, yes, more, because if I'm a surfer, I want a 10-foot wave. If I'm a bad surfer and I think I'm going to get pounded by that wave, I want to shut that wave down. But if I'm a good surfer, I want a 10-foot wave. I love his 10-foot wave. And the reason why I love his 10-foot wave is I'm in full equanimity with me. So he's roaring in desire. I'm not even close to being there yet. And I just take a breath with the difference there. And then I think, I wonder what I would need that would get me there. And then I bring my desire. Oh yeah, you want X? What I want is for you to breathe me so fully that I can't help but give it to you. I mean, you can just see with two people in full equanimity not collapsing around this very dangerous stuff. It's amazing. And the thing that's so beautiful about allowing desires to be present is your relationship never gets old sexually.
I want to highlight that when he addressed his desires, it's not that you're almost surrendering to it immediately, but you're also checking with yourself around where are you at with that? And is that something that you can authentically and honestly meet in this very moment? And if not, that comes into the interplay.
I wouldn't describe it as meet it because there's like a little bit of obligation. I would describe it like we're two musicians and he played a note. And then I go, what does that make me want to do? Oh, yeah? I take your note and I play this. And the thing that's so beautiful about that is by the time I'm there, I'm all in. If I speed up for like some obligation, he gets like, it's for him. I'm not really all the way there. And in the end, what makes him the hottest is when like I'm into it. So I always give him that gift by moving at the speed of my turn on.
Right.
But the thing is, I hold myself to playing. And what I feel sorry for men is that a lot of women, the minute he makes a wrong move, they don't want to play anymore. Brutal. So brutal. If all women could learn, just keep playing, like the way kids play, like warmer, cooler, warm. When when you're playing warmer, cooler, you're not like mad when it's cooler. You're like honest. You're like cooler, warmer. That's the way it was.
Right.
And I want to pull in my experience just to help the men understand. You're sitting in front of your partner, and because you're fully present in breathing, you're very aware of what's happening in the moment. The moment is very intentional. That's why practice is so important. So I'm with her, and then suddenly I feel this fire in my genitals and my belly, and this fire goes, I want her, or I want to touch. Now, what do I do with that impulse? If I react to it and I just lean in and touch, what's going to happen? Is that the most polarizing thing I could do? Probably not. So instead, I feel my desire to touch. And rather than just reactively leaning in and grabbing, which will clearly not open her as fully as she could be opened, what happens when I lean back? I breathe my desire and I say, get over here. Which of those two is more polarizing? The second, by a long shot. Now, approaching with touch can be more polarizing in certain situations, but I'm illustrating a very specific teaching here that we need to develop as men, because I'm not moving faster than her authentic opening and turn on.
Right.
I'm moving at the speed of her authentic opening and turn on. But my words and my feeling might be 100 times faster than her authentic turn on. So my turn on's 0 to 60. And I may say something like, I want your mouth around my cock. And she just sat down in front of me. She's like, dude. And I'm just like, yeah, it's just one of those days.
I just put the kid to sleep. Like,
But what I'm doing in there is I have equanimity with what my experience actually is, and I'm saying it in such a way where she knows I have equanimity. And what I'm communicating is, I want you. And I'm completely unattached at the speed at which this has to happen, or if it even happens at all. Doesn't make a difference. I love you. I want you. Get over here. And what does London do in such moments? So artfully, so skillfully, she says, not yet. Now, what does that do for me as her partner? She's not shutting me down. She's not saying yes and acquiescing and go faster than she wants to. But there's then real polarity. That tension that you would feel in that moment, I want you to get over here. Not yet. That's the essence. of sacred sex practice. And if you could learn to create those moments and sustain them,
That's okay.
draw them out, that's what actually facilitates a real authentic opening and turn on both partners. And then you begin to touch from that place without losing that sacred fire, that flame that the two of you are holding together.
I love this so much, and there's so many directions I would like to take it, and I'm as well conscious of our time together. But the thing I want to speak into is, in terms of experiencing that deep desire within, but as well having that capacity to restrain ourselves. I've heard you as well in the past, Justin, speak to it around this idea of having like this 800-pound gorilla. You're experiencing it, but you're resting back. And I wonder as well if there's certain moments where we can be more, I'm going to say, penetrative, more directive, as well with our physical approach that can be opening. And how would we approach that as well as men? So I guess the way I want to put it, how can the leaning in as well be arousing and actually not diffuse sexual energy?
To be fully conscious of what's happening in her experience in her world, to be fully aware of your environment is all necessary precursors to bringing that 800-pound gorilla in a way where it's actually going to land. Now, one thing that I want to clarify is that experience of me leaning back and saying, get over here, that is very penetrative. That's wildly penetrative. I'm penetrating her with my attention. I'm penetrating her with my command. I'm penetrating her with my breath and my posture. So I want to be careful when we use the word penetrative, because penetrative is just as much leaning back as it is moving forward, right? But if I want to bring that energy towards her, that primal animalistic quality, which she loves too. She doesn't want me to just be Buddha all the time. She wants to feel that force. In order to do that, I would need to see her body in real time, see where she's at. And maybe the best thing when I first walk in the door, when I come in, is I come close to her and I say, hey. And then I put my hand against her chest and push her up against the wall. And then I lean into her and just breathe her. And then I let go, I turn around and I walk away without saying a word. Those moments is when you can bring that energy. But if I was a goof, maybe she didn't want to be touched that way in that moment. Maybe there's a door right there and it's not fully closed. I push her and we both fall through the door. So the more we want to bring the intensity of that energy, it's important, but the more conscious we are of our environment, of the moment, of the impact. A great teaching in Tibetan Buddhism is if you take a substance and it's the wrong time, wrong amount, wrong reason, it's poison. That same substance, right time, right amount, right reason, is medicine. That, in that description, not only are they talking about real medicines and herbs, but they're also talking about the nature of sexual desire. And it is very much that way. So when we learn through formal practice how to bring those qualities and liberate those parts, suddenly they're available to you in a way where you can bring them out into your life. Just like if you want to be great on a football field or you want to be great martial artist, you got to go to the gym and train and do those repetitions. This is no different than any other martial art or form of yoga. You got to hit your reps. And when you do, you'll be able to take what you learn in the dojo or in your practice and apply it in those real life moments. But that should not stop anyone listening to this from trying all of these little things whenever they want. Sprinkle them into your life and develop the skills in any which way that you can. And just have fun with it. Remember, the essence of this is to reforge our shared reality, to remind one another that this moment is love and we're here together. And when we can create that experience with our own partner time and time again through conflict, through ecstasy, we really begin to build something sacred.
So many more questions that I have, so many remarks I have, but I'll restrain myself as well from bringing them in. Before we close off, though, it feels important for me just to speak to one element that you both bring in that very much touched me, especially in terms of the upper triangle, which is this idea of devotion. and just honoring as well the time that you still have remaining. But maybe just in a few minutes, there's this curiosity for me. Why is this element so important, this element of devotion? And why would you argue as well is the last pillar of the spiritual path of intimacy?
Ultimately, what sacred sexuality promises is the ability to grow sexually and spiritually with a partner and have that partnership be a sexual awakening for you continually, year after year, a revelation. I mean, that's what we're all up to. And then when it is the same partner and you have this much communication around desire, seeing, feeling, allowing, being present, and learning each other day in and day out, that awakening accelerates and accelerates and accelerates. And what allows this to become something that is the most powerful spiritual accelerator in your life is when you're doing it from selfless service. These techniques are the most powerful energetic techniques a human being can put their hands on. If you lack devotion, you become the most manipulative wizard, a-hole, woman or man on the planet. You can manipulate anyone to do anything for you, and you can leave a trail of destruction behind you. You can get whatever you want in life and hurt a lot of people along the way. Devotion is it's the checks and balances of the rest of the map, because the map will make you very powerful.
Yes.
Devotion will make you very awake. You can do every other point on the map and not wake up at all, but become so deluded you think you're awake.
Yeah.
Devotion is what you actually use to awaken.
Devotion is the moment where you cultivate this practice not for yourself or for your own personal gain, but in service of the ones you love. That this practice is not about you anymore, but you get to the point where this is in service. Now, some people hear that and they can be scared of that idea because they've been in relationships where they may have been that person, but it wasn't reciprocated. They were in a one-way dynamic where they gave that, the other person went, "Thank you very much," but didn't give it back. The devotion we're talking about is when two people come together and give their lives to one another in that way. And when you enter into that dynamic, where there is that degree of love and trust and true devotion, selfless devotion, this is for you, and the person in front of you is doing the same, there is nothing. There's no substitute for that experience. I wish that experience for every human being, to know what that can be like and to share that experience with somebody. If I didn't have this work, it never would have been possible for me. The only reason I can have that experience today is because of this map, is because of these practices, is because of the discipline of showing up to it day in and day out. But as you begin to taste it, it becomes, as I said in the beginning of the call, as precious as any other thing in your life, as much as your children, as much as your finances, as much as your home, as much as your family. This is right at the top with it. And if anyone can feel inspired by what we're talking about here, I just want to say to you, wherever you are, whatever age you are, no matter how young you think you are, how much time has passed and you feel you've passed your time for this, do not wait. If something about this work calls you, there's something profound within you. And the secret doesn't lie in just some teacher or some path or some tradition. The secret lies in you, but you have to show up to the yoga. You got to do the work and let your own wisdom be revealed, and the quality and the way you want to live and love, let it be expressed. And let it start in your home with the person that you've chosen to love.
I feel that is a beautiful way to slowly come to a closing of our conversation. Thank you as well for sharing a few words on this. And yeah, noticing myself feeling very touched by it and having experienced glimpses of it in my life, I noticed that there's a deep yearning for that as well. Where can our listeners find you? And are there any events? Is there anything that you would like our listeners to know about in terms of what you're offering?
Yeah, the easiest way to find out about us is my website is justinpatrickpierce.com, and London's website is londinangelwinters.com. London is spelled Londin, angelwinters.com. There we have online classes that we do monthly for men, women, and couples. So if you want to come and be guided through some of these practices with your partner, we do that on a monthly basis. The links will be on our website, so you could sign up through Patreon. We do about 4 to 5 live events per year. They do sell out quick. So if you are interested in joining us live, you want to get on our newsletter, and we'll send a newsletter once we start on enrollment, and just make sure you apply pretty quick. And then we'll definitely love to get anyone who's interested in seriously working with us in person into that space. And then the remainder of our time is spent in private mentorship. For those individuals who really want to dive a little deep, we'll do 3-month intensive mentorships with couples and singles.
And you can always give your partner our book. And I wrote a book for women, The Awakened Woman's Guide to Everlasting Love. So if you want her to kind of start to understand how to receive some of these things, you can just leave it around.
And I want to say the way that we wrote those books, particularly Playing with Fire, is our intention with that book was we said, if we couldn't teach another day and we could put it into pages where people wouldn't need us, where this would be enough for them to really sink in and understand and really begin to develop on their own, the book was written from that place for those individuals who are really serious about getting into this work and having a path they can follow.
I absolutely felt that coming through, and yeah, we'll continue as well coming back to it, and I can highly recommend all the listeners to check it out. It really feels like such a succinct, clear, practical map with, a lot of exciting stories as well. So I'm sure there's going to be a bit for everyone. Before we close off, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this incredible conversation that we've had. Thank you for sparing your time as well to share these teachings and as well come together in this way. It was such an honor for me as well to witness the two of you in your interplay and the playfulness as well that was present, which was a different dynamic between just me and Justin, right? So yeah, it was special, and it gave me really a deeper understanding of what it is that I as well desire. And I'm sure anyone who's listening. And so I just want to say thank you, first of all.
But I just want to say, Alex, you are the man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Your heart.
Your heart, your demeanor, your sincerity in this world and in this work. It just comes through in your presence. And it's an absolute honor to just hang out with you and get to spend this time and talk about cool stuff. I love your wisdom. I love what you're doing. And just honored to be part of it.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much, especially coming from the two of you. I guess just to close it off before I pause the recording button, is there anything that we didn't get into that you feel like you can't leave this conversation without mentioning or without saying to our listeners?
I could do this with you for another 5 hours, bro.
Man, I could do it as well.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot we could get into.
I hope we can do a three-peat.
I'm absolutely on board. If you want to do that at any time, you just let us know what timing feels good, but absolutely.
I think there was one thing I wanted to say, which is to all of the men listening to this, thank you for loving women well. Thank you. I mean, if you got to this part of the podcast, right, you are obviously committed to this kind of conversation. You are a beautiful gift. And I hope you find a woman that just eats it up for many years to come. Blessings.
Blessings to you both. Thank you so much, everyone. If you got up until this point of our conversation, I hope you got value out of this conversation. If you feel like you know someone who could receive value from this conversation, my dear encouragement is to pay it forward. And until next time, signing off. Thank you for listening to this episode. Your time and attention is truly appreciated. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to stay tuned for my upcoming episodes. And in case you know somebody who would find this episode helpful, I encourage you to pay it forward. Finally, if you've personally been receiving value from the show, one way you're able to support this podcast is by leaving a 5-star rating and a written review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Not only does this help more people find the show, but it also supports me in bringing more incredible guests on for the future. I'm your host, Alex Lehman, and until next time, signing off.